Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Meat for the Grinder. This is our series of weekly Necromunda Battle Reports, and this is a continuation of our Necromunda Dominion campaign for Sector number 7. This is Battle Report number 55, and it is a three-way battle that is fought between Iron Major, Scream of the Emo, as well as O'Death. This one is actually a War in the Shadows scenario, and Iron Major is playing the Prophets of Rage, a Corpse Grinder Cult gang. Scream of the Emos bringing the Red Faction, a Genestealer Cult gang, and O'Death is playing the People Eaters, a Helot Chaos Cult gang. So this one is actually kind of interesting because the three cults that we have in our current campaign will be fighting it out in this one, which is also kind of appropriate because, you know, these gangs are known for sneaking around the shadows and working behind the scenes in order to raise support as well as membership for each of their gangs, and so this one kind of fits them perfectly in terms of narrative. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what the gangs are bringing, go on and take a pause, take a look at your own leisure, because as the music is playing, we'll show you photographs of all three gangs as well as their rosters. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, so the scenario rules for this one is War in the Shadows. For the crews, each gang uses a custom selection of one gang member from their roster. This fighter cannot be a leader, it cannot be a champion, and it can't have more than one wound characteristic on its entire profile. The rest of the gang are then held off as reinforcements. What ends up happening is, starting with priority, the players then take their fighters and place them anywhere on the battlefield of their choice. They can't be placed in base contact nor within line of sight of an enemy fighter, however. Once deployed, the fighter becomes ready and may immediately activate and perform a single, simple, or basic action. During the reinforcements phase, in the end phase of the second round and onwards, and every round afterwards, a random fighter will arrive on the battlefield from each of the gang rosters. They must be deployed within 2 inches of another friendly fighter. Ending the battle lasts until 10 rounds have been achieved, or if there's only one gang left standing. The victory conditions for this one is the gang with the most fighters on the battlefield ends up winning. For the rewards, when it comes to experience, you earn 1 point of experience for each participant that took part in the campaign. In the scenario. For reputation, the winning gang earns D3 points reputation, and any gang that battles out, of course, loses 1 point reputation as well. And I just kind of noticed too, as I looked at the photographs of these three gangs, they're actually quite large over the period of time that's taking place, especially the Prophets of Rage. They've grown really, really rapidly, which is kind of interesting to see exactly how they stack up with the rest of the gangs for our campaign. It's just kind of neat watching these gangs slowly grow from like 8 to 10 man squads to these 20 plus huge mini armies now that they all at, which is actually kind of cool for that part. But that's just me digressing. So with that being said, let's go and talk about the battle plan real quick. Alright, so here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x6 table, and of course, my friends have already deployed their fighters. We have, I believe it's a member of the Red Factions on the top of the Crown properties over there, in the top left-hand corner of the battlefield. We have another member from the Helot Chaos Cults deployed on the top of the little satellite dish on top of the Tower of Terror. And if I remember correctly, one person's also from the Prophets of Rage located in Alexander's department store, which is in the top center of the battlefield as well. Now, as for the battle plan for this one, once again, I'm the arbitrator in this scenario, so I really don't get to say, I don't really know what they're planning for their battle plans. All I'm really doing is just taking photos and advising on rules and stuff like that and recording what's happening for the campaign. As for what my friends are planning, I really don't know. I just basically can assume they're going to try to kill each other is basically what they're going to do, as well as try to keep their losses and minimize them. And that's pretty much it for the battle plan for this one. So with the battle plan over with, let's go and talk about deployment real quick. Alright, so first of all, we start with the People Eaters of the Chaos Helot Cultists, and so this one's for my buddy O'Death. He decided to actually use Bloodwing, his Helot Cultist. That guy's got flak armor, he's packing a long rifle as well as a sword, and as you can see here, he decided to put it on the very top level of the Tower of Terror as well, so that's where he's located at. And after he made his basic action, he just kind of moved him to the left a little bit, so that way he gets a good line of sight towards the Genestealers on the upper left-hand corner of the battlefield. And in the upper left-hand corner, my friend Scream the Emo has decided to place his deployment for the red faction. He decided to use Johansson, which is a neophyte hybrid. That guy has a hazard suit as well as a respirator. He's packing a grenade launcher with frag as well as crack grenades. He's got an auto gun as well as an auto pistol, and he also has a third arm as well. And that guy's also Ballista skill 3, so it's a pretty good choice there. As you can see, he put him on the top level of the Parkway Properties building on the upper left-hand corner as well. And then for his simple action, he also moved him just a little bit to the left, so that way he has a good line of sight directly towards Bloodwing. And finally, we have the deployment for the Prophets of Rage for Iron Major on the second level of Alexander's department store. That character's name is Loken Flay. Loken Flay is a skinner. He's armed with a skinner's mask. He's got full plate armor. He's carrying a paired butcher's chain cleavers. He's got the specialist berserker charge as well as slaughterborn special rules attached to him as well. And as you can see, Iron Major decided to kind of hide him at the Alexander's department store, so that way he doesn't get shot at from long distances. So with the deployment over with, you go directly to the top of turn number 1, and all 3 of my friends roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Genestealer Cults, and my friend Scream with the Emo gets to go first. He decides to activate with, with Johansson. He does a basic action to get to aim his grenade launcher, so that way he gets a +1 to hit, and he also decides to open fire with a crack grenade flying across the battlefield directly to Bloodwing. Unfortunately for Scream with the Emo though, he missed his shot. He rolled a 1 when he went to fire, so because of that, the shot lands wide, it doesn't manage to hit anything, and pretty much makes up the entire action phase for the red faction on this one. From there, we then get activate with Iron Major next for the Prophets of Rage. He decides to activate Loken Flay, and all he does is a double movement. Spends a single one of his movement actions to drop down to the first level, and does another basic simple movement to move 5 inches heading towards the shantytown, moving through the shanties, heading directly to the center of the battlefield. And for the last activation of this phase, my friend O'Death decides to activate Bloodwing. Now, Bloodwing takes a basic action to aim his long rifle, so that way he has a +1 to hit. Now, he's actually got a 2-up hit for the modifier for the shooting at. He's shooting at long range, and with the long rifle, you get +1 hit for that. Plus, he's taking basic action aim as well, which negates the -1 to hit against that he would have against Johansson due to the distance as well as the partial cover that he has. And he opens fire with his long rifle. And not only does he manage to hit, but he also manages to wound Johansson as well, putting a grievous injury on him as well, also knocking out the red faction the very first turn of the scenario. So my buddy Scream the Emo was like, great, threw up his hands, picked up Johansson, and that was pretty much all that's all she wrote. And actually what it was, she actually, my friend Scream the Emo, actually when he got hit, when Johansson got hit, O'Death managed to put a serious injury as well as a flesh wound on him. And the reason why is because when you fire the long rifle with the knockback special rules, if the weapon strength is higher than the targets, you actually cause double damage. He put a flesh wound and a serious injury on him. But because of the knockback rule, he also goes back an inch, which means that pushed him right over the edge of the 3rd floor, and he fell 3 floors directly to the ground, and that was what put him out of action, putting a grievous injury on that guy as well. Basically, I can just imagine too, he just got shot, got flown off the building, and just kind of fell to his doom, for lack of a better word. So because of that, the red faction are now knocked down the very first round of the game, and that pretty much brings up the end of turn number 1 for this one. So that takes us directly to the end of turn number 1, and here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, O'Death is still stationed up on the top left-hand corner there on the roof of the Tower of Terror. Bloodwing is just basically knocked out Scream with the Emo as well as the red faction from the rest of the scenario. So because of that, one gang has been eliminated, leaving only 2 gangs left, which of course are the Helot Chaos Cultists as well as the Corpse Grinder Cults. You can't really see the photo from here, from this angle of course, but Iron Major's Prophets of Rage are being represented by Loken Flay. He's on the bottom there, right behind that the shanty there on the right hand side in the middle of the town square there. And that's pretty much where he's hiding out as well. And since due to the scenario rules, they're in the first round, no reinforcements arrive for the first round, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2, and Iron Major as well as O'Death roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 2, and the Helot Chaos Cultists manage to get the initiative on this one. So O'Death, he decides just to actually have his character just hide. Just actually keeps on the roof of the building, has no reason for him to maneuver around, which kind of makes sense because he could actually put himself in harm's way if an initiate with a long-range weapon managed to show up on the table. So it's actually a pretty smart call from my friend O'Death for the most part. So with that, we then go to Iron Major. Iron Major, of course, activates Loken Flay, and Loken Flay does a double movement, moving along the bottom of the catwalks, using them as overhead cover, so that way he doesn't get shot at by Bloodwing with his long rifle as well. And it's actually a pretty boring round because there's only 2 gangs left, and they only have 1 fighter apiece. So with the action phase over with, you go directly to the end phase. And during the end phase, my friend O'Death rolls up to see which one of his fighters will come out from taking his fighter cards out of his deck, and he actually draws half face number 2. And half face number 2 is a Helot Cultist. He's equipped with flak armor, an auto pistol, frag grenades, as well as a maul. And so because of that, he shows up for the rest of the battle report. And Iron Major does exactly the same thing. He randomly pulls a fighter card from his deck and pulls out Avot, one of the Hive scum that's in their warband because of their fighting pit territory they control. He's equipped with mesh armor, he's got a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, as well as a maul as well. And that pretty much makes up turn number 2 for this one. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield at the end of turn number 2, and as you can see, O'Death has decided to garrison the top roof of the Tower of Terror, which is located in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. At the same time, Iron Major's forces are moving along the bottom of the catwalk along the ground level, using it as overhead cover as they make their way directly to the Tower of Terror. And that pretty much makes up turn number 2. So with turn 2 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and my friends roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Corpse Grinder Cults this time, so Iron Major will be going first for this turn. He then decides to activate Loken Flay. Loken Flay does a double movement along the bottom of the catwalks there, heading closer to the Tower of Terror, using the catwalks, of course, as overhead cover. And once again, my friend O'Death decides not to move any of his members of his cult at all. He decides to keep them exactly located at, which is actually a pretty smart move because nobody has line of sight on these fighters, so they can't be targeted for long-range shooting. And at the same time, I think what my buddy is trying to do is just kind of keep his guys looking at the top of the roof and just have more fighters show up as time goes on, and hopefully win the battle report just with sheer numbers. Because the battle report rules, scenario rules, of course, state that you win this whoever has the most fighters, which kind of makes sense for the most part. So for the next activation, of course, the last fighter that's activated is Avot of the members of the Corpse Grinder Cults. He moves up a double movement as well, moving along the bottom of the catwalks and just slipping right there, making his way closer to the Tower of Terror. And like I said before, my friend O'Death decides not to activate any of his fighters, and that pretty much ends turn number 3 for this one. So during the end phase of turn number 3 on this one, as you can see, the Chaos Cultists managed to recruit Snarl. Snarl ends up being randomly chosen from the fighter deck, and so because he's a cult disciple, he's equipped with mesh armor, he's got a heavy stubber with a suspensor, so that way it only costs a basic action open fire with his heavy bolter. He's got an auto pistol as well as a drop rig. He's also got the Inure to Insanity as well as the Infiltrate special rules. So that is a reinforcement that shows up for the people leaders. As for Iron Major and the Prophets of Rage, Dran Ilvek appears next, right next to Loken Flay. Dran Ilvek is the Initiate. He's got Initiate's Mask. He's packing flak armor. He's got a stub gun with dum-dum rounds. He's also packing frag grenades. He's also got a Butcher's Cleaver and this Infiltrate special rule as well. And that pretty much makes up turn number 3 for this one. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield at the end of turn number 3. As you can see, O'Death has decided to garrison the top level of the Tower of Terror, and as we're basically just kind of reinforcing it, having more of his members of his gang show up. At the same time, Iron Major has decided to assault forward using the catwalks as cover, make his way directly to the base of the Tower of Terror so that way he can assault upwards. And that pretty much makes up the turn number 3 for this. So with turn number 3 over with, you go directly to the top of turn number 4, and both of my friends roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 4, and the Helot Chaos Cultists managed to get the initiative on this one. So my friend O'Death decides to take action. He decides to activate Half Face. Half Face moves up his normal 6-inch movement allowance to the edge of the Tower of Terror. He decides to chuck a frag grenade down below into the catwalk, space of the catwalk where Avot is located at. And he decides to aim his grenade not at Avot specifically because he doesn't have line of sight. He decides to aim it about an inch to the right of him is what he decides to do. And the reason why he does that is because while the grenade might not be able to hit him though, he is still caught in the blast radius. So because of that, the 3-inch blast radius actually manages to catch him. And so because of Avot gets showered with a shower of hot shrapnel as well as fire. Luckily for Iron Major though, not much really happens. All that ends up happening is he ends up getting pinned and does also get pushed back an inch as well for the knockout rules as well. So as you can see there, Avot also just kind of scoots over a little bit. And interestingly enough, when it comes to Iron Major's next activation, he decides to activate Avot first. Avot takes a simple action to get back on his feet again and performs another simple action by moving up forward his normal movement allowance along to the base of the Tower of Terror. Meanwhile, my friend O'Death decides to activate Snarl and does a group activation with Bloodwing. Both of those characters, of course, move up their normal movement allowance to the left-hand side of the Tower of Terror as well, and actually they have a good line of sight directly towards, what's his name, Dran Ilvek. They actually have a pretty good line of sight directly towards him as well. So because of that, Snarl does open up with his heavy bolter, and of course Bloodwing does open up with his long rifle. Bloodwing actually missed his shot, however, Snarl does manage to get 3 rounds off directly onto him, manages to hit him twice as well as wound him twice, and as you see here, it puts Dran Ilvek directly out of action with an enfeebling injury as well. So because of that, Dran Ilvek will go directly into recovery, he will miss out his next game, and to make matters worse, he also loses a point of toughness, making him only toughness 2 now for the rest of the campaign. So for his final activation, Iron Mage decides to activate Loken Flay, who does a double movement along the bottom of the walkways there and make it directly to the base of the Tower of Terror. The nice part about that is that both Loken Flay as well as Ava are now within the dead space of this tower, which means that the fighters on the top of the tower from the people eaters do not have line of sight of them because they're just too far down, they can't see them. So they are protected from being long range fire at this point, so that part's kind of nice. So that pretty much ends at the action phase. So with the action phase over, we go directly to the end phase. And in the end phase, King Slender, who is the leader of the People Eaters, the Chaos Cult Demagogue, is actually randomly drawn next. So because of that, he shows up 2 inches right behind half face number 2. He's packing mesh armor as well as a cult icon. He's armed with a shotgun with solid as well as scatter shot. He's got a sword as well as an auto pistol. He's got the devotion and near to insanity, commanding presence, as well as iron will special rules. So this guy is definitely kitted out to keep on fighting and stay in for the long haul. As for Iron Major, his recruit that shows up is the Bloody Nine, who is an Initiate. He's got an Initiate's mask as well as flak armor. He's armed with a stub gun with dum-dum rounds as well as a boning sword. He's also got the Infiltrate special rule as well. And that pretty much makes up the end phase for this one. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield at the end of turn number 4. As you can see, the action is slowly moving directly to the bottom left-hand corner of the battlefield. And it looks like it's going to end up happening is that we're going to have like a Judge Dredd kind of raid type situation. Now, if in case you're not familiar with those films, in both films, Dread as well as the Raid, the characters are actually assaulting a building, working their way up from the ground level all the way up to the top floor, and it looks like the same kind of thing is going to be happening here in a second between Odeth as well as Iron Major as the Prophets of Rage work their way up the levels of the Tower of Terror in order to engage the Chaos Cultists on the top, which would actually be kind of interesting to see that happen. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 5, and both of my friends roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 5, and the Corpse Grinder cults get to go first, so Iron Major decides to activate Loken Flay. Loken Flay does a double movement in order to climb up to the first floor of the Tower of Terror. As you can see there, he's kind of posted there, slowly making his way up the tower in order to engage the Chaos Cultists. And in a surprising move, my friend Odeth decides to activate King Slender, who also does a group activation with Half Face, and both those guys do a single movement to go directly to the next floor down. So now on the second floor of the Tower of Terror, it looks like what he's doing is kind of sending some of his fighters down to the second floor, so that way they can intercept any members of the Prophets of Rage as they come up to try to attack him. So for Iron Major's next activation, he taps the Bloody Nine. The Bloody Nine does exactly the same thing. He does a double movement to join up with Loken Flay on the first floor of the Tower of Terror. And Odeth does exactly the same thing. He does a group activation with Snarl, who also activates Bloodwing, and they both just spend a basic action to drop down to the next level. So now they're on level 2 with the rest of the Chaos Cultists. And for his final activation, of course, Avot goes next, so Iron Mage decides to tap him, and he does a double movement to climb up to the first floor of the Tower of Terror as well. And that pretty much makes it the action phase for this one. So the action phase over with, you go directly to the end phase. So in the end phase, Kellum the Maul actually shows up for the members of the Prophets of Rage. Kellum the Maul is the Initiate. He's got an Initiate's mask. He's also got flak armor as well as a stub gun with dum-dum rounds. He's also got a Flensing Knife, and he's also got the Infiltrate special rule. And for the members of the People Eaters, they drew up the Thing. The Thing is a Chaos spawn that used to be the Oculoid. The Oculoid was a member of this gang who got used for the Dark Ritual, and unfortunately they failed their role. They lost favor with Slanesh with that one. So because of that, he got transformed into the Thing, which is a Chaos spawn. Of course, he's got the Warp Monstrosity, Mindless Beast, Out of Control special rules. He's got Weapon Skill 4 up. He's got 4 Strength, Toughness of 5, 2 Wounds, 4 Initiative, 2 Attacks. So pretty deadly. And he shows you there right there. He shows it right next between Snarl as well as Half Face number 2. And that takes directly to the end of turn number 5. As you can see here, all the action is taking place on the Tower of Terror, so I don't have to do an overhead shot, so I just focus my camera directly onto the tower. And as you can see, the second floor of the Tower of Terror is occupied entirely by Chaos Cultists, and the first floor, of course, is occupied by members of the Prophets of Rage. So it'll be kind of interesting to see exactly what happens in the next turn, because nobody can really charge each other, because no one has line of sight on each other. So depending on who climbs up or climbs down will determine basically how this battle's going to go. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 6. My friends roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 6, and the Corpse Grinder Cults get to go first. So the very first person that my friend Iron Major decides to activate is Killing the Maul. Killing the Maul does a simple action to climb up directly to the top floor, of the second floor of the Tower of Terror, and then he takes another basic action to open fire with his stub gun with dum-dum rounds directly into King Slender. Not only does he manage to hit King Slender, he also manages to wound him as well and puts a grievous injury on him as well. So because that King Slender does go out of action, he will go into recovery, which means he will miss out on his next scenario. And the reason why this is able to happen is because when when Killing the Maul opened fire with his stub gun, he does manage to hit him as well as cause a wound. But when he caused a wound, he actually caused a flesh wound originally is what he ended up doing. But because King Slender was so close to the edge, he has to take an initiative test or else he falls off. He's got initiative 3 up, so this shouldn't have been much of a problem for my friend Odeth. But when Odeth rolled a die to see exactly what ended up happening to him, he rolled a 1. So because of that, King Slender goes falling all the way from the second floor directly to the ground, and that injury was the one that put him out of action as well. The nice part about it, though, is that 2 experience points are netted by Killing the Maul, 1 for taking a fighter out of action, and a bonus experience point for taking out a leader of a rival gang, which is actually kind of cool. So, not to be outdone, my friend Odeth then activates Half Face number 2. Half Face number 2 does a simple action to work his way down the first level of the Tower of Terror, and he sends a basic action to open up this auto pistol directly into Loken Flay. And not only did he manage to hit him, he also managed to put a serious injury on him as well. If I remember correctly, I think Half Face number 2 got 3 shots off with the rapid fire dice for his auto pistol. I think 2 of them wounded, slipped with the armor save, and they both were serious injuries. So because of that, Loken Flay goes crashing to the ground face first, and he is currently bleeding out on the ground as well. Unfortunately for my friend Iron Major, though, he does have to take a nerve test for the Bloody 9 because he's within 3 inches of that happening. And unfortunately, the Bloody 9 failed his cool check, so because he does drop down to the ground level in order to hide and take cover. As you can see, he's got the little nerve icon on him as well. So in order to recomp his losses, Iron Major then activates Avot. Avot charges across the floor there directly towards Half Face number 2 and actually engages him in close combat as well. And he also managed to put him out of action as well, putting a grievous injury directly on Half Face number 2. It was basically a stub gun with dum-dum rounds that was actually the one that put the coup de grace on that guy as well. Managed to slip a shot off right directly into his head, so because of that, Half Face number 2 gets the top of his head blown off, and he gets a grievous injury as a result of that. So because of that, he does go into recovery, and he will miss out on his next scenario as well. So, my friend Odeth decides to do an activation with Snarl, who then also activates the Thing as well. The Thing goes charging directly into Killing the Maul, so because the 2 of them are engaged in close combat. At the same time, Snarl does a simple action to drop down to the first level of the Tower of Terror, and does a basic action to open up with his Heavy Stubber directly into Avot. And the reason why he's able to do that is because he has a Suspensor on his Heavy Stubber as well. When it was all said and done, the Thing just kind of flubbed his role against Killing the Maul, so because of that, Killing the Maul as well as the Thing are still engaged in close combat, and luckily for my friend Iron Major, Avot managed to get a serious injury put on him as well. He does get shot at with the Heavy Stubber. I think he managed to get hit once, slips through his armor, wounds him, puts a serious injury on him as well. He does pass his initiative test, so he doesn't worry about falling off the edge, so as you can see that both of them laying down on the ground, bleeding out as well. Which is a really bad spot for Iron Major's fighters to be in, because in the next turn, if anybody from the Chaos Cultist charges into him, they can finish him off with the coup de grace and they go out of action, so that's a really bad spot for him to be in. So for my friend Odeth, for his very last activation, he activates Bloodwing. Now Bloodwing spends a simple action to drop down to the ground level as well, and a basic action open with his long rifle directly into the Bloody 9, but unfortunately though he missed his shot, it's because not much really happens there. And that pretty much makes it the action phase for this one. So with that, we go directly to the end phase, and as you can see in this photo, basically a couple of guys pop up. First of all, Vas Hadun, the Skinner, also shows up right there in order to act as a blocker between Snarl as well as Loken Flay. Vas Hadun is armed with a Skinner's mask. He's got plate mail as well as parrot butchers, chain cleavers, and he's also got the specialist as well as the Berserker charge special rule as well. And as you can see there on the right hand side too, another cult disciple shows up. That is Rar. He is a armed with mesh armor. He's got a Heavy Stubber with Suspensor on it as well. He's also got an auto pistol, a drop rig. He's got the Inure to Insanity as well as the Infiltrate special skill as well. And that pretty much makes the end phase for this one. And of course, the Blade 9 does manage to regain his nerve again, and so because he earns himself an additional experience point for that as well. So that takes us directly to the end of turn number 6. So here's a shot of the Tower of Terror. As you can see, the action that's taking place. Killing the Maw as well as the Thing are still fighting it up, and down below on the first level is a bloodbath, as all these members of the Prophets of Rage are being shot to pieces. At the same time, the Chaos Cultists are ready to open up with heavy stubbers directly onto Vasadun, which could be a really bad spot for them. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 7, and my friends roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. So we go directly to the top of turn number 7, and the Corpse Grinder Cults manage to get the priority on this one. So Iron Mage decides to activate Vasadun, who goes charging directly into Snarl and engages him in close combat, which is actually a really good combat for him to be in, because one, he gets one attack for base, because he's got that's what his status as a Skinner. Not to mention that he also gets another attack for having additional hand weapons. Plus, since they're paired Butcher's Cleavers, he gets another attack on top of that with the paired weapons trait, and because he's got the Berserker charge, he also gets another attack as well because he goes in. So he gets 4 attacks off directly onto Snarl, which is absolutely fantastic. Needless to say, he just straight up decapitated Snarl, as you can see in this photo. Managed to put him as an out cold result as well. In the end, he actually managed to cause 8 wounds directly onto him. So 8 individual injury dice were actually rolled. I think 4 of them were 4 or 5 were flesh wounds. 2 or 3, 2 of them were seriously injured, and I think 1 was out of action result. So either way you look at it, he would have gone out of action just from the flesh wounds alone. Luckily for my friend Odeth, however, he rolls an out cold result, so because of that, he will make a full recovery. However, he is no longer participating in this battle report. So, not to be outdone, Odeth decides to open up with Rar. Rar opens up with his heavy stepper directly into Vasadun, as you can see right there in that photo as well. Managed to put a lessons learned result on him as well. It actually managed to hit him 3 times with that heavy stepper, wounding him 3 times as well. So as you can see there, he is now down and out, Vasadun, with an injury. He does go into recovery, so he will not be able to participate in his next scenario. However, he does earn himself, I believe, 2 extra experience points, was ended up doing with that lessons learned. And what is the lesson here? The lesson here is not to fall back after you attack somebody. Just follow through 2 inches, that way it's a little bit harder for them to shoot at you. That's my suggestion to Iron Major on that one. So we then go to the second floor of the Tower of Terror. Iron Major then decides to activate Killing the Maw. Killing the Maw tries to throw his attacks directly into the Thing, but fails. The Thing does counterattack and manages to put a flesh wound on Killing the Maw as well. So Killing the Maw is only toughness 2 now for the rest of the scenario. However, he can still shoot, he can still fight, he's still a threat, not one not to be taken lightly either. So Iron Major then goes next. He activates the Bloody 9. The Bloody 9 does a simple action to climb up directly to the first floor of the Tower of Terror, and then takes a basic action, open fire with a stub gun with a Dubno round directly into Rar. Not only does he manage to hit Rar, he also manages to wound him as well, plinking off 1 wound off his profile. He's only got 1 wound left, and he's currently pinned right now because he got shot center of mass in the Dum-Dum round, so that part was intense. So Odeth decides to activate Bloodwing. Bloodwing moves out his normal movement allowance, that way he's got a good line of sight directly into the Bloody 9 with his long rifle, and then he opens up with it. Not only does he manage to hit the Bloody 9, he also manages to wound him as well. However, when it came to the injury though, he rolled a flesh wound, so because of that, the Bloody 9 is now only toughness 2 for the rest of the battle report. However, Eddie is currently pinned. However, he can still move, he can still fight and shoot, so he is still a threat. So that being said, that takes us directly to the end of turn number 7 for the end phase. So Iron Major rolls for recovery for all of his gang members. As you can see, pretty much not much has really happened. Loken Flay is still seriously injured. Same thing with the Bloody 9 as well. Avot manages to get back on his feet again with a flesh wound. By this point, though, Iron Major has to take a bottle test. And unfortunately for him, though, he does fail his bottle test. And he decides to end the game right here, netting a victory for the Helot Chaos Cultists on this one of the People Eaters. So as you can see, here's an overhead shot of the battlefield with the Chaos Cultists standing triumphantly over the War in the Shadows scenario for this one. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the post game and talk about exactly what happened to each of the gangs, because this game is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, so go directly to the post game for the Red Faction on this one. So the Red Faction only had 1 fighter take place in this scenario, that was Johansson, and Johansson suffered a grievous injury, so he does go into recovery, and he will miss out his next scenario because of it. For advancements, none of the members of the Red Faction advanced at this time. However, from their territories, quite a bit happened. From their settlement, they earned 1 point of reputation, as well as recruited a new neophyte hybrid named Venner. They also earned 10 credits from that territory. From the Refuge Drift, they managed to score 30 credits from that. From their Rogue Dock shop, they still managed to retain the service services of Old Doc Whately, and from their mining works they earn 2 points reputation as well as earn 120 credits from that territory. And finally, from their smelting works they manage to earn 30 credits from that as well. In the trading post they managed to score 190 credits from their territories, and with those 190 credits they equipped Venner, their newly recruited neophyte hybrid from their settlement, with an auto gun as well as a stub gun from their stash. They also purchased for him dum-dum rounds, frag grenades, a third arm upgrade as well as a respirator. They also managed to purchase mesh armor for Desher, their third aberrant. They also managed to purchase respirators for Mordecai Black, Pickman, Innsmouth, Arkham, as well as Jorgensen. They also purchased twin sets of dum-dum rounds for Mordecai Black, so that way his 2 stub guns have strength 4, and then he finally took the last 10 remaining credits and decided to put them directly into his stash. For his reputation, he earns 3 points reputation from his territories, bringing his grand total to 52. His new record now is at 6 wins as well as 5 losses, and the new gang rank now is at 3,400 points. So with that, we then go to the Prophets of Rage for Iron Major. For injuries, he lost 2 fighters in this one, Vasadun as well as Drowned Ilvek. Vasadun got a Lessons Learned injury, so he earns himself 2 additional experience points, but he does go into recovery, whereas Drowned Ilvek suffered an enfeebled injury, so he loses 1 to his toughness permanently, and he also goes to recovery as well. For advancements, Vasadun actually leveled up to level 2, earning +1 to his toughness, so that way he's a little bit tougher to kill now in shooting as well as close combat. From his territories, from their settlement, they earn 1 point reputation from their settlement as well as 10 credits, and then from their fighting pit they earn 2 points reputation as well as still retain the services of Tova and Abbott, the 2 hive scum that work for them. For their trading post, they decided to take all 10 credits and put them directly into their stash. For the reputation, they earn 1 point of reputation from their territories, bringing the Prophets of Rage grand total to 19 points. Their new record now is at 1 win as well as 6 losses, and their new record now is at 1,755 points. And finally, we have the People Eaters of the Helot Chaos Cults, who are the winners of this scenario. From the injuries, they actually suffered 3 injuries for this scenario. King Slender as well as Half-Faced Tooth both suffered grievous injuries, so they both go directly into recovery, and Snarl got an out cold result. For advancements, Bloodwing leveled up to level 3, earning +1 to his cool, and the Mangler, which is the the Ambot, actually leveled up to level 4, earning +1 to his weapon skill. Now is due to the Dark Ritual, which I'll talk about here in a second. From their territories, in their settlement, they earn 1 point of reputation from their settlement as well as 50 credits. From their Promethean stash, they still receive 3 incendiary charges for their fighters. From the Refuge Drift, they managed to capture that as the brand new territory they actually captured for this scenario, and it's a Refuge Drift. They get +1 reputation from it as well as 30 credits, and the reason why is because when you look at Helot Chaos Cultists, they count as Cawdor when it comes to the enhanced boons for territories. Now, for the Dark Ritual, they decided to my friend O'Death randomly select the card and actually pulled up the Mangler on that one, which is actually kind of crazy. So the Mangler was actually selected for the Vessel of the Dark Ritual. However, it was successful for them. They also gave them the favor of Slaanesh, so because of that, they will be able to do group activation 2 fighters once per turn in each of the battle rounds. At the same time, the Mangler earned 5 points of experience, which of course leveled him up to level 4, earning +1 to his weapon skill. From the trading post, they got 80 credits from their territories, and my friend O'Death decided to place all 80 credits directly into his stash as well. For the reputation, they earned 2 points reputation from the territories, as well as 3 points reputation from the scenario, bringing them to a grand total of 28 points in total. Their new record now is at 5 wins as well as 5 losses, and the new gang rating now is at 2,745 points. So that's going to do it for this one, you guys, for Battle Report number 55 of our Necromunda Dominion campaign. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.